And we're racing in Silverstone. What are the starts like? It looks like it's a good start from Blizzard. Gamer's going to have to cover him off then as we make our way in towards the first corner. They're going to run side by side. Now Obsidian looking for a move in towards 13 here. Not normally overtaking the opportunity. Clipping the curb on the way through. Almost making contact with the number 53 factory car then. And this battle has absolutely ignited. And just as it ignites, Obsidian Racing come into the pit lane as you predicted there, George. What a half a lap they had there.
Pounding the Porsche once again through the corners, looking for an inside move down towards turn 5. Oh, he's trying to go up the inside, but not going to happen.
Look how much it means to Kirsten Abea. Look how much hard work has gone into that race. What a moment for him.
It's time for the 4th episode of Commentator's Corner, and I've got a very, very good friend and also a colleague of mine alongside, welcoming along to Commentator's Corner for episode 4 from Kent, Kieran McGinley. Kieran, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. A very belated Happy New Year and Happy Christmas, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. And belated Happy New Year, belated Christmas and all that. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, so for those wondering, some trivial stuff about Kieran. He's got a penchant for Chatham Town FC because they recently, on January the 29th, took a 3-0 victory. So congratulations to them. He commentates on the likes of, Pro Racing, where we've worked together, GTR 24H when we were in Denmark for the EEWC Le Mans finale. You like to do a little bit of karting in your spare time, head down to good old Buckmore Park when you get the chance. You've done some endurance racing. And also, Kieran, the most biggest development in your life, before unfortunately coming down with the dreaded C19, was you proposed to your good lady just after Christmas, and she said yes. Congratulations, mate. Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, thankfully she said yes, but it might prove to be the worst decision of her life. We'll wait and see. But thankfully she said yes, and and then not long after that, I got the old C word. So yeah, I mean, you couldn't have written a better script, I think.
Hollywood would have loved that one, I think. They probably would have bitten it off more than they could chew, really, to be completely fair.
Thrown millions at it, for sure.
Yeah, probably billions, maybe. Who knows, depending on how much they needed to get around it. But Kieran, this is an opportunity for people to get to know you, because obviously people see you on the screen, they hear your voice. Obviously, you've been at other circuits, you've been just like Mr. Buxton, and also myself as well. You've actually been trackside, so you've been to Rye House, where I regularly commentate. You actually did a round of the IKR Championship last year, I think round 4, if memory serves me correctly. You've also worked with the likes of Chris Dawes, Alan Hyde, amongst all. Alan Hyde, an absolute legend in the pit lane, very, very well known, and also I think he's like the Peter Pan of the pit lane. He just never seems to lose a step. He just keeps on going. And he's also a dab hand in the commentary box as well. But Kieran, just give people out there an idea of how you first got bitten by the motorsport bug, and who was there a big influence? Was there a particular family member? Was there a particular friend? Just give us a little bit of the details on that one.
Well, to be honest, I don't remember first watching Formula One. That's how early on I was watching Formula One races. My dad used to watch the races with me on his lap, normally when he'd be, having breakfast before he went to work. And this was the period of, sort of Schumacher, Hakkinen. One of his earliest memories of me, pushing me in a pram, was looking through a pub window and seeing Schumacher crash into the back of Coulthard at Spa-Francorchamps. That's one of the earliest memories he has of having me as a very early age. But I mean, the fact that I don't really remember much of the late 90s and early 2000s, which is bizarre to say, but I really don't. But I've been watching it ever since. And yeah, I think my dad was a huge influence. He got me into karting about 8 years old, took me down to Buckmore Park for the first time. And yeah, I sort of caught on from there. It snowballed, and now I'm hooked and I get to shout over it for, it's amazing. It's amazing how far it's got.
It's quite funny how, the fandom of motorsport doesn't really, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because it was the same with me as well. That my dad was one of the catalysts for giving me the opportunity to go to, like, say, Brands Hatch, and I'm talking 11 years before you were born. This is how much of my age I'm actually showing, because for those wondering how old I'm going to be this year, on the 5th of September 2022, Alex Goldschmidt turns 45 years of age. And Kieran, you are a bit of a whippersnapper in comparison with me. 20 years my junior, pretty much.
Yes.
But what was the first memory you have of being trackside and watching the action as it unfolded? Obviously, Brands Hatch is your nearest circuit, of course.
Yeah, my dad actually took me down to the track probably when I was about roughly 6 or 7. Now, this was the club racing, so there was lots of, I think it was Formula Vs at the time.
Yeah.
Either that or it was Formula 4s, but they were open wheel with no wings. So that's the closest I think I pretty much remember that. I went to a Formula 1 race though with my stepdad when I was 8 years old, because that was the, well, actually a bit older than 8 years old. It was 2008 Silverstone Grand Prix. Yeah. And if you remember that was absolutely rain sodden, but it was one where I don't think a single driver didn't spin in that race. It was quite something, but to be sat at club corner, listening to those rocketing, roaring V8s as well, just absolutely unbelievable. And when they say, especially with those engines at the time, that they give you these protective earbuds that you pop into your ear and you need them, you think, no, it can't possibly be that loud. Oh, it is. And it was.
I completely understand and relate to that, because I was there in 2009 when Jenson Button was running with Brawn GP, and I was at Cops. So it was still when it started from the old pits, from the the national pit straight, not the international pit straight, as we see just off Club Corner and the wing. And yeah, that particular race was an absolute masterclass from one certain Lewis Hamilton, who went on to win his first of 7 titles that year. Now we come on to the next part. Obviously, I liked how enthusiastic you were when you said, yeah, I get to shout about it on the microphone. You've commentated at multiple circuits, Snetterton, Cadwell Park, Silverstone as well. You've even been given last minute calls to jump into the comms box at a moment's notice. I've had that many a time myself as well. Who was the person that really helped you get your first start in commentary, whether it was sim racing or whether it was in real life? Because you actually are an exponent of both, pretty much like a lot of people that I've already, well, the first two, Jack Canaan and George Morgan, they're looking at their opportunities for real life commentary. But Chris, Buxton, yourself, we've got some great guests coming up here on Commentator's Corner who do a combination of both. Who was the person that really got you on that road to becoming a commentator?
I was at university in my 3rd year, so we're talking roughly 2018, late 2017, early 2018. It was my university lecturer who had basically done a lecture on commentating, the art of reacting, as he called it. So we had to pick a segment, whatever we wanted, and do some commentary over it. After that, he actually approached me at the end of the session to say, have you ever thought about doing something like that for a living? Have you thought about it as a career prospect? And so from that point on, from late 2017, I started doing league racing. So early in F1 2017, started to do that into the new year, and it's sort of picked up ever since, really. I've absolutely loved it. I don't really ever watch my first commentary back because it started late, right in the middle of the straight, down the Kemmel Straight, down towards Spa. So I don't watch that race anymore, purely because I'm a bit awkward, and I think I've slightly improved since then.
That's always the thing about us commentators. We're not always keen on hearing our own voices, and that very much is true, because we all have to do our own respective show reels, which is now de rigueur. They're all starting to come out. I mean, like Lewis McGlade, Kieran, Kieran's got one as well, which he posted in, it's actually his pinned tweet on Twitter. Don't forget, you can follow Kieran on relevant social medias in the links in the description down below here on the official Commentator's Corner description here on my official YouTube channel. We are not in the vein of promoting by saying like, share and subscribe, but it is your decision and your discretion whether you want to do so. So that's a bit of a different tangent on that one. I don't really like to brag or boast like a lot of these people saying, yeah, share, like, and subscribe. To me, it's all about getting to know individuals, and this is it's meant to be a bit more wholesome. This is about having a bit of fun. So yeah, it was September the 8th, 2021, 3 days after my 44th birthday, when I was currently on duty in Wackersdorf in Bavaria in Germany, commentating on the Euro Trophy this year just gone. and it was the final round of the championship, I think, if memory serves me correctly. I should remember that, shouldn't I? Come on, Alex. Not going senile yet. But when you look at it, and we all have to go through show reels. We all sort of like go, oh, my voice didn't sort of quite sound like the polished diamond it is now, or the diamond that is slowly and surely being polished. When did you actually get your first start in real life commentary trackside?
So this was late 2019. I was in the Snetterton commentary box for the GT Cup finale alongside Chris Dawes, and that was my first trackside commentary, and that was quite something to be just launched into. The amount of GT3s that were lapping the track, Snetterton, which is famously quite narrow in certain places, and to see Lamborghinis try and lap their way around there, absolutely fantastic sight to see. And that was supposed to be then a springboard into a much better 2020, but spoiler alert, I think we all know what happened after that. So everything just sort of got put on hold really after that.
And then obviously sim racing came in alongside Justin Sutton. And Justin, I am going to be gunning for you for an interview here on Commentator Scotland. We've got to hear your dulcet tones. You guys are currently the voices for the Aramco Formula One Esports Series Challengers, and obviously which is now underway again on another season. To be involved with something as prominent as Esports Challengers, which then goes on to Esports Series Champions as well, if memory serves me correctly. You must have thought, oh, my goodness me, that's an opportunity and a half.
Yeah, it's my second year of doing it full time, to do all the rounds, I mean. And yeah, I think last year when I got the email through, it was roughly, I think it was about late October 2020. So I had to hold on to that news for a long, long time. Might have even been earlier than that, but I did have to pinch myself to think, hang on a minute, this can't be real? Someone's pulling my leg. But no, it definitely was real, and I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. The fact that it is this qualifying stage for drivers to show their worth, to get to the Pro Series and to compete for that prize money, not only for themselves but for their respective teams. It's astonishing. I've seen graduates from last year challenge their way at the top, the likes of Josh Idaho, Alessio De Capua, and Patrick Sipos. They've all made their mark in the Pro Series this year. They graduated last year, so it's fantastic to see that journey, and obviously see them early on as well. You get to have that knowledge, that fact file for them as well. You've seen what they can do, and to see them then do it on the big stage is absolutely fantastic.
Now we're gonna not sort of sidestep, but we're gonna go into another area of racing as well, and that is, funnily enough, the CSCC, which you've also had, the Classic Sports Car Championship, that you've had the pleasure of commentating on trackside. I do remember having a chat with Chris Buxton when you both were at Cadwell Park, and you had to. I think I can't remember the terminology that Chris used, but it was actually quite a good one. He is quite a wordsmith behind the microphone, as Mr. King Kodiak. But there was one particular point. I think you were in the box at the far end of another point of the circuit, and then he did the other day. What would you say, out of all the machinery that you've looked at, you've seen, you commentated on in the CSCC, are there any cars that stick out as your favourites?
The wonderful thing about the CSCC is you don't really know what to expect. They're split into these different categories, but you still could come across, it's this wonderful thing where you could have a Mustang against a Mini Cooper. It's just astonishing. The wide variety is amazing. I have to cop out. I can't give a favourite because the range of machinery that's on offer is just wonderful to watch in itself. You sort of get lost in the moment of having to try and see, I'll pick out this car. That's fantastic. And whilst I may not have the in-depth knowledge of some of the cars, especially when we go back to the 60s and the 70s, it's always a chance for me to sort of research. I mean, if it's got four wheels, chances are I'm going to enjoy watching whatever it does out on track.
Yeah. I think it's like when I partnered up with Josh Barrett at Snetterton 300 for one of the British Truck Racing Association days, and those things are blooming enormous. Like thousands of horsepower, multiple tons, water being squirted onto the it's water cooled brakes. So everyone thinking, oh, they're locking up. No, it's just the steam just coming off the very, very hot brakes on the front axles. And, we even had like the classic touring car racing club as well. And we had this wonderful Aston Martin V8 Vantage that had the Gulf style colors. They did like the reverse of what McLaren have done with the Formula One car in most with the MCL 35 last year's vehicle. And it had this whopping great there was a lot of engineering prowess put into this rear diffuser on this car, and it had this god almighty center exhaust pipe that just made this all authoritative, like Cartman, you were his bed mouth sort of noise, like from the back end, and you've got a 1.3 Mini Cooper trying to chase it down through the twisty stuff. It was awesome, absolutely awesome.
I will say, actually, that it's reminded me that Thruxton, I saw an Aston Martin DB4, and to see that try and roll through the S's was something else. It was absolutely astonishing. People are racing a DB4, more money than sense, but all power to them. It's fantastic. Especially
with the amount of power that got buried under that right foot, though, when they put it near on through the through the carpet and through the roll cage that's probably just underneath them, that part of tubing, and then the steel floor underneath. But out of are there any particular moments that over your commentary career so far that have really, really stood out and said, you know what, that was actually pretty epic? I know it's like saying, asking people to choose between children, if they're parents or whatever, but are there any particular, just name a couple of standout moments that you've really enjoyed what you've seen, and you just thought, I don't think I could have done that better even if I tried again?
Definitely F1 Esports challenges. Every time I've been behind the mic, it's been fantastic. There's been some great racing, and it's come to be because you've got that equal machinery, that pure equal machinery. So it is driver versus driver in that sense. That's always really good. The 24 hours, any 24 hours that I've been a part of, the 24 hours of Catalonia. I've also done the GTR 24H 24 hours of Le Mans when we were on location in Denmark. Those are always fantastic. It's always a sense of trying to keep up with the action, but also making sure you are awake. But the weird thing is when you're commentating for that long stint, and when you've only got an hour break and then you're straight back in for another 2, 3, 4 hours, however you feel you can go on for, it's the same as a driver. The adrenaline just keeps you awake, and by the end of it, about half an hour afterwards, you do start to crash. But I love endurance races. I love racing in them, love commentating them. And I think as well, a lot of the club races really go under the radar. When I go to Brands Hatch, when I go to the likes of Cadwell Park, to Snetterton, a lot of these club races, I've seen quite a few familiar names, and unfortunately for the drivers, they keep hearing me as a familiar voice. So that's unfortunately for them. But I mean, some club racing that really goes under the radar in terms of grassroots motorsport, fantastic to watch.
Well, just like the mini festival, because you commentated on that last year at Brands Hatch, if memory serves me correctly. Yes. So you'll probably hear names like, say, maybe Joe Polly. Andrew Jordan likes to get his elbows out behind the wheel of a Mini 7. So it just goes to show, there are so many people that will get behind the wheel of a Mini and just go for broke, because the Mini is one of the most exciting race cars. It might be, I think when they say that good things come in small packages is probably the term when it comes to the Mini Cooper, on just bang for buck raceability, affordability, and also great action out for the spectators on the circuit. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. Seeing them go 3 wide down the start finish straight at Cadwell Park, of all places, Cadwell Park, absolutely astonishing. No other sets of cars, no other sets of drivers could go 3 wide down the start finish straight at Cadwell Park. Truly astonishing.
Right, we've got a few more questions to go before we wrap this up here on episode 4 of Commentator's Corner. Right, Kieran, if you had no fixed glass ceiling of budget at all, and you were given an opportunity to race at a circuit of your choice and any race car of your choice, this is going to be a tough one. This is why I want you to have a couple of minutes just to think. about this, because some of these questions are completely unprepared, prepared for me to ask our guests here on Commentator's Corner. But if you had the opportunity to race in a car, no budget, nowhere is taboo in terms of where you can race, what car would you pick and where would you compete?
Wow. Well, I would be lying if I didn't say it would probably be an F1 car. F1 has been my bread and butter for the last, well, ever since I was born. So it's always probably going to be naturally biased towards a Formula One car. But for the sheer speed, for the sheer pace, for the sheer technology that has come in Formula One over the last 70 odd years, I can't not see it but somehow me fitting into the Mercedes W12. It's an astonishing piece of machinery. And it won the constructors. I mean, it was part of 8 in a row, the 8th car in that long line of historic cars that went on to win another constructors title. Just a phenomenal car. And I think that's the car I would love to jump into and just see the amounts, the sheer effort that a driver has to go through, not only to keep themselves fit, but to also be strong enough to get that car around a lap as quickly as they do. Just astonishing. But so obviously I'd be biased towards the open wheelers there, having been raised on them, but that, I think that's what I would go for, the W12.
What circuit would you pilot that at? Which one could you really think would be, yeah, I'd like to give that a go and see how I fare?
For the sole reason of it being flat out in those cars, Spa-Francorchamps, Eau Rouge. Because I've seen it in person, how the sheer climb is up towards Eau Rouge and over to Raidillon, to go flat out through that corner. And with these cars, that might be the last chance. We'll have to wait and see what the new regs, what they do to the cars and whether you can go flat out through there anymore. But it's a possible last chance to go flat out in there. Spa-Francorchamps all day long, all day long.
Okay, so with this particular part of the show, I will ask the question to the guest, and then I will make a comparable what I possibly would choose. So we're going to stick with Formula One here. We're actually going to stick with Formula One tracks as well. So the two go hand in hand. And this is where it gets interesting. So you said the 2021 championship winning Mercedes-AMG EQ Power W12 at Spa-Francorchamps. Very, very good choice. I'm going to take people back a little bit here. I'm going to go a little bit further back in history, probably the best part of 17, 18 years. And I'm going to go to a circuit that Formula One now goes to. And it hosts the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. I'm talking about Imola. And the circuit is going to be joined by one particular vehicle, and it is from 2004. Funnily enough, it is the championship winning car that year, the Cavallino Rampante, the Scuderia Ferrari F2004, piloted by one Michael Schumacher. So to give you all an insight, this is going to be something where I get an idea from my guest and I give something back in return. And they're two very different cars, two very different circuits, but you can understand how we think as petrol heads, as commentators, play-by-play announcers, if you want to call us in the United States. But wouldn't you say that's another good combination there, Kieran?
That's a really good combination. I can't think why I didn't think F2004 at first, but I'll tell you what, that is a fantastic, I mean, the engine, the V10 of that, such a, you know, back when the Formula One cars were light, they were agile, they were nimble, you know, what a fantastic choice that was. You know, what's it, penultimate year before the V10s were eventually rid of.
Yeah, actually.
For the V8s in 06.
Yeah, I think so, because the last championship year that was won,
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 05 was the last of the V10s, unless you don't count Toro Rosso, who ran a restricted V10 engine.
Which was a Cosworth engine as well, if memory serves me correctly.
That's right.
That's the thing. I mean, it's really funny because I I've just done a quick Google search whilst we're doing this, and I remember there's an article that has just popped up, and there was a quotation from then FIA president and former Scuderia Ferrari team principal Jean Todt, who on March the 8th, 2017, according to Autosport.com, said that Formula One cannot return to louder V10 or V12 engines in the future because he believes the move would not be, and in quotation marks, would not be accepted by society. However, Glenn Freeman from the race thinks otherwise, because Bring Back the V10s is one of the best podcasts around on that. And when you look at it, it's it was round about the mid 2005s. I think it was round about probably when Fernando Alonso won the championship in 2005. Then we went to V8s in 2006 full time, apart from the Toro Rosso. I wouldn't call it cannibalization, but I think probably neutering of said V10 engine, unfortunately.
I'd have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Your karting exploits, you love to get behind the wheel. We do know that there is another commentator that I will be earmarking, Yusuf bin Sahil, you have been warned, that you both like to get behind the wheel. I mean, obviously, Buckmore Park, you've done endurance racing, you've done sprint racing over there. And Buckmore is an iconic circuit. It was under, for many a year, under the governance of the late Il Grande John, the legend that is Mr. John Surtees, and obviously his family, led by his daughter Leonora, then started, running the circuit. Buckmore Park has a lot of history. We've now got the Medway Valley Kart Club, courtesy of one of the guys behind F100 karts of the 90s. I think I'm just trying to remember them. When you know the first name of the person and you just forget it.
It's on the tip of your tongue, isn't it? That's
it
always
is.
the way.
I know the first name is Jay. And I'm just going to look at it on Facebook, because sometimes I do have moments where it is Jay Fairbrass. He's the man behind. Him and Chris Derrick have, they recently announced that at Kartmania back at Silverstone last November. It wasn't long before I flew over to Oman after that, actually, for my own. I need to get frequent flyer miles. I've been telling that to many people, Kieran, at the moment. But Buckmore Park has still stayed in its same configuration, and it's great to see that. The circuit. There was a lot of talk, especially when Buckmore Park were informing people of what was happening due to COVID at the circuit, what was happening, possibility of buildings being done. So the car park, the big car park we know, was possibly going to have buildings put over onto it. And there was a lot of hoo-ha about it. But what does it mean to have Buckmore Park in Kent, and not too far from Brands Hatch? They're within a stone's throw of each other, aren't they?
Definitely. I think, I might be a bit biased because I used to work there as a marshal.
You know what? I don't care about bias on this show. Be as biased as you like. That's the whole point, because the purpose of this show is for for people to get to know you, but B, also to understand your character. And it's about sort of breaking through that glass ceiling of what people think of commentators. It's just this is about fun. Okay, there's a structure to it. I mean, I think Chris Buxton and my conversations on episode 3 meant that it started. We thought it was going to be 45 minutes. The episode 3, if you look at the timer index after this video here, ladies and gentlemen, including outro, intro, and the introduction of Chris, it was 1 hour and 6 minutes. So this show will go on for as long as we have something to talk about. Chris and I were really, really going off tangent. So it's
That's not like you two.
No, it's not like us two at all. We were just having man moments about classic cars out on circuit. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just be as biased as you like. But obviously, it's such a sentimental part of the motorsport fabric in Kent, isn't it? Alongside Brands Hatch.
Definitely, and I used to work there when John was working there, John Surtees, of course. And I met him for a brief few words. It was when the new fleet of karts, the new fleet of RT8s were being brought in from the changed colour scheme from sort of red and black to the blue and yellow, the very familiar Surtees colour, the blue and yellow being brought in. And I'm, managed to have a chat with him as I was setting up some karts ready for this fantastic 35 kart endurance race. As such an incredibly down-to-earth guy, always wanted the best for Buckmore when he took over the ownership. And when he sadly passed away, of course, Leonora took the reins, and as obviously it's been a really, really tough time for Buckmore in terms of they originally were going to come back, and then they had to shut their doors again. And that really called into question whether it would or wouldn't come back. And by that point, it was sort of a few months before 2020, I'd actually left there. So I had spent 4 years there. I'd learned a lot going there. I really fell in love with racing and understood better how a kart works. More than I did before I started. Actually driving them really helped me out in terms of understanding how it all works, what happens when you kick the back end out. There's probably too much speed going through there. Pretty much the same when you do understeer as well. But finding the fine balance between the two. And also the fact that Buckmore is just a fantastic track in terms of the undulation. You've got the first part of the circuit, which is a few hairpins, but then you make your way through the Symes sweep. The Symes sweep in towards Pullman's is a fantastic section of track. Downhill to the right, bit of a bump, let off, flick the kart into the left, in towards Pullman's, and then down in towards Paddock Bend, sorry. What a fantastic section of corners that is. And up the rides towards Garda as well, where you're literally, I was taught not to brake, but to let off and flick the kart in and see how it goes. Which I still try and do to this day, but it's debatable whether I can get a solid lap time out of there. But it's a fantastic track. It's very hard not to fall in love with it.
Brilliant. Well, Kieran, one final question, really. Everyone in commentary has people that they look up to, people that have inspired them to be those people that if you're not good enough, you talk about it. Who would you say are probably the most definitive individuals, apart from obviously the likes of Murray Walker, who has inspired so many people with the way that he was, and the charisma, the excitement that we got when I still remember when Prost was at Ferrari, Senna was at McLaren, and we had Suzuka, Turn 1, 1990, and I still remember the words. And look at that, it's happened immediately. With Murray, to a lot of us, I think pretty much all of us, have been inspired by the man, the myth, the legend, who is sadly no longer on this earth. Is there anybody else that has really, really inspired you in terms of commentary?
Yeah, of course. Murray Walker is always going to be a big one, but obviously he stepped down from the mic in 2001. So there wasn't really a period of time where I remember his commentary specifically. Obviously, he made a comeback at the 2007 German Grand Prix, the Nürburgring, where, Markus Winkelhock took that amazing strategic decision to start on the full wet weather tyres and led the race at a spiker. It was the only lead they ever race. First, I think he was the first driver to lead and to be at the back and never finish the race. It was astonishing something.
Yeah.
So that will happen in 17 laps or something ridiculous like that. And that proved to me that, Murray Walker was always one of the best around. The art of commentary was very much painted by him, especially in the early days. So I would probably have to go with the ITV coverage. James Allen was a huge influence on me, because that's when I really start to remember the Alonso Schumacher battles, and you had the likes of Hamilton versus Massa, which was a fantastic day and age in 2008. And of course, I think criminally short stint for Jonathan Ledyard as well. He was a big part of the Brawn GP years, and Jenson Button taking his one and only title, as well as the 2010 season. And then you had, of course, David Croft taking the reins with Sky Sports from 2011, and he's been a staple there ever since. I think a mixture of all three of them have had some sort of influence as me as a commentator. And whilst I sort of restrain from saying, oh, I want to be the next David Croft, I want to be the next James Allen, I sort of want to make something of me. I want to be me, which is kind of hard to do. You want to take leaflets out of some people's books, and the amount of people, the amount of league races now that start with, and it's lights out and away we go. I mean, that just shows you in itself how big of an influence David Croft is to any aspiring commentator. So I think all three of them together have had some sort of influence in the way I commentate, and all three of them share the same thing. They are passionate about the races they watch. And if you're passionate about the races you watch, it shows. You win the audience over immediately. Once you're suckered in, you sucker everyone else in too. And it's a fantastic roller coaster to be a part of.
Kieran McGinley, thank you very much for being the guest here on episode 4 of Commentator's Corner. Buddy, it's been a real pleasure catching up with you once again.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope I didn't drone on too long, and people tune in for the next one, eh?
Indeed. Wait for episode 5 of Commentator's Corner with myself, Alex Goldschmidt. A big thank you to my special guest tonight, Kieran McGinley. Stay tuned for episode 5 and quite a few more afterwards. Until then, from here on Commentator's Corner, it's good night for now.